What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you the second portion of my position rankings. Today we're talking defense. We're back in the Google Doc. Gonna be a nice, calm, relaxing rankings. I'm gonna go through, edge, linebacker, corner, safety, the whole thing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you do, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. That would mean the world to me. And also, comment down below your rankings of certain positions or who I should flip in your eyes and where I'm right and where I'm wrong. I'd love to have that talk with you. This is just my rankings, and obviously it's very fluid. Every team has their own board of sorts. So this is just how I see it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these position rankings. I'm going to move through this pretty quick, still in the process of moving, so got a few other things I'm trying to take care of today, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and start, and I actually don't want to give away too much of the edge rankings, so we'll go ahead and start with Jaelan Phillips. I think you throw out the injury concerns, there's a serious argument for him to be the 10th overall pick to the Dallas Cowboys because they need another edge rusher opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence, and I really like him in a 4-3 defense. I think they should go corner, and there are the medical concerns with Jaelan Phillips, but the medical retirement thing wasn't necessarily his call, right? Like, you have a quota, like you hit X amount of concussions in Y amount of time, and you're forced to step aside. He transfers from UCLA, stays healthy, and puts up excellent numbers at Miami, has a fantastic pro day. You get the whole package, right? A guy who has talent, he was a 5-star recruit, you know he's a stud, you know what you're getting on the field, and he's got the athletic upside, and because really he wasn't even a full-time player, didn't get a full year's worth of reps until this past year, there's still upside. I think this guy is still getting better, right? Like, the more work he gets, the better he's going to continue to be. So I think he's the highest floor, the best edge rusher in this class, and there's still room to go. So in my last mock, the 3-round mock, if you haven't seen it, I had him going to the Indianapolis Colts, and if he falls in the Colts' lap, they should sprint the card because you're getting a big position to need, automatically the best edge rusher on your team, and somebody who's going to continue to get better. Additionally, I think Phillips can fit in a 3-4. I like him in a 4-3, but his size, weight, athletic ability, I think he'd be fine in a 3-4. I could see him probably at 3-4 D end. Don't have a whole lot of tape of him playing in space. So that might be your only concern. Maybe he's a 3-4 D end, but regardless, if he's rushing the passer every play, you feel good about having him on your defense. Moving on to number 2, that's Azeez Ojulari, another one of those high floor players. Does a great job with his outside moves. Could get better when it comes to, beating tackles towards the inside. You go back to, I'm pretty sure it was the Sugar Bowl, either Sugar or Cotton Bowl, where Georgia was taking on Cincy, and it was him against James Hudson, which is, a fun matchup to think about now that, the draft's around the corner. There's two guys getting a lot of buzz right now. And Ojulari was actually getting kind of clamped by Hudson. Hudson was able to take away those outside moves, and eventually Ojulari was able to make the adjustment, which is something you like to see. The tactician skills working on the fly, that's obviously a good plus for Ojulari. And then Hudson got hurt, and then Ojulari just tore up whoever that tackle was that came in after Hudson. I mean, Ojulari single-handedly secured that game for Georgia in the second half. If you didn't watch it, go back. I mean, Ojulari's an animal in that game. But nonetheless, I love him in a 3-4 defense, but he really could be a speed edge rusher in a 4-3. He also, like Phillips, has that edge versatility. He can fit whatever defense. With these guys, they're good at what they do. They also have upside. Ojulari was a 2-year starter, maybe 1.5-year starter, or 1.5-year starter, a better way to put that. So these two guys are going to get better, and their job is going to be get to the QB. So regardless of what team takes them and what their defense is, these guys have a role. They have a value. I would argue edge is the second most important position in football behind quarterback. So these guys are going to make whoever takes them very happy. And they're two guys that, because QBs are going to go in the top of the board and there's a lot of elite pass catchers and offense is just naturally flashy, I could see Jaelan Phillips falling to 21 of the Colts when he, without medical concerns, is a top 10 player in my mind. Or Azeez Ojulari, who's a top 15 to 20 player in my mind. He could fall, like in my mock, to the Ravens at 27. I wouldn't be shocked. So some teams in the mid to late first round are going to get a couple of studs here in Phillips and Ojulari. Number 3 and 4, and again, if you missed my offensive rankings, I encourage you to go watch that. It's a little long, but I have these sort of into tiers. Again, we're in a Google Doc. I'm making this laid back. This does not need to be very intricate. Nonetheless, I have these in tiers. I think Phillips and Ojulari, hands down, best 4-3, best 3-4. They can play either way, though, and I think they're the two best guys in the class. Then you get to 3 and 4. upside athletic freaks, right? These are your sub-7 cone guys if you take that stat heavy to heart. But Kwity Paye does have the production that Oweh doesn't, right? But I will say that production for Oweh didn't come until last year, right? Like, which is both concerning, right? Because if you'd like to see him dominate for multiple years, and if he did, he might be edge one just given his athletic ability. But with that said, taking that step, getting better, and he's still only got like 700 snaps in his career. Like, he has plenty of room to go and lots of work to do. So I like Paye. Again, I think he's a 4-3 guy. I'm less certain about him fitting in a 3-4 than someone like Phillips. But I could see it work. I really could. I mean, especially if he gets coached up the right way, I wouldn't put it past him. Good athlete, obviously. Getting better. And then Jayson Oweh, again, just phenomenal athlete. I mean, his pro day at Penn State is one for the books. Go back and if you didn't see the numbers that came in, just go look at it and then look at his size, his height, weight, and then just be like, how? Because that's really the only reaction you can have. This guy just does things that human bodies physically should not be able to do. No sacks, though, at Penn State, and that's obviously an alarming number. You put a 1 in front of that 0, he might be edge 1, right? Like if you had the sack number, he's probably top 10 to 15 player in this draft class. But I like the upside, and again, somebody who needs to get coached up, and if he falls to a team like Tampa, like I had in my mock, where he sits for a year and learns from someone like JPP, who's put together a really solid career, Shaq Barrett, who was a late bloomer, now having great success in Tampa, that'd be a great situation for Oweh. But I could also see it the other way around, where if he's thrown into a spot like, let's say Minnesota took him at 14, or the Ravens grabbed him at 27, and he got immediate playing time, you might look at it and say, wish you could refine him some more. But he's also just a guy, I think, the more reps he gets, knowing when to use certain pass rush moves, learning how to win after your first move doesn't win and get you to the QB, once he learns to do that, I think this guy has all the upside in the world. So some of it's reps. Like, as much as I'd love to see him wait and learn from polished pass rushers and work with good linebacking pass rushing coaches, I also just want to see him on the field figuring it out himself, right? Failure's life's best teacher, and I'd like to see Oweh fail a few times, because then if he's a quick learner and he does his work, again, he's going to become really polished. He's going to get there quick, and he already has the athletic profile that you're looking for in this position. So these two are the next tier. They're semi-projects in my mind, but they're totally worth it at the same time. And then get to 5 and 6, a couple of opt-outs in 2020. I really thought about switching Tryon and Rousseau, because Rousseau's pro day really was a bummer, right? We all looked at him and was like, dude, look at this guy, like 6'5", 6'6", great frame, super long arms. Like, he has everything you want. But then his pro day was pretty mediocre. So he went from this guy who's, he's a great athlete, big, great athlete, kind of like what we talked about with Paye and Oweh, big, great athletes, to where he's just big. And when he wins on the inside. So given a 4-3 defense, I like Rousseau. Like if, I keep referencing that mock, the Jets in the top of the second round. I think that works a lot, especially in passing situations. You have Rousseau, you kick him inside, put him next to Quinnen Williams, and you let those two beat up on guards and centers. That sounds like a perfect way to create some pressure. You still need some edge help in that scenario for Robert Saleh on that defense, but Rousseau does need to learn how to be a better pass rusher. He is good against the run. So instead of harping on how he needs to get better against tackles, he wins on the inside, and he's already good against the run. And there is value in that. So given his upside, I still have a late first round evaluation on him. But at the minimum, he doesn't have, the floor is not as low as I think a lot of people are making out to be, because I think minimum, he is a good run stopper, and that has value. It's more of a passing league for sure, but at the minimum, you can bring him down, and he could be a situational pass rusher in the future where you kick him inside and he's a rush D tackle, and maybe on the outside, a desperate enough team could use him as a good run-stopping end. So I think the floor isn't as low as people want to make it out to be, but the upside is still there. And he went to Miami as a wide receiver. They knew they wanted to make him a pass rusher, but he's got 1 year of playing time at the position, then opted out last year. Really wish we could have seen him last year, because if he had another 15-sack season, again, move him up to the top, right? But he didn't. And the same could be said about Joe Tryon. Really versatile guy. I like him in either defense. Has the ability to play in space. Washington used him in a lot of different roles, which is something that's good, but also it took away from his potential production as a pass rusher, so I think that pushes him down. Overall, this is just a good edge class. Like, all these guys, like, if a scenario played out slightly different, I could see an argument for them moving into the top 2 and into this class with Phillips and Ojulari. But I like Tryon. Tryon has grown on me a lot. At the beginning of this process, I was like, he's like a third-round guy. But the more I watch and the more I see him do different things, the more I actually end up really liking him. Again, I contemplated putting him ahead of Rousseau. He's a more polished pass rusher, especially against tackles, than Rousseau is. Rousseau might have him beat as a run stopper, but again, it's passing league, and you need to be able to win on the outside. So I'd love to see him end up as a 3-4 outside linebacker where he can use his ability to play in space and rush the passer, obviously, but I think he'd be fine in a 4-3 as well, and that's part of what people like about him. He is scheme versatile, and he has good enough athletic traits. So I like Tryon a lot. He's my number 6 edge. And then so we have 15 edge rushers, if memory serves. I do. Here are the next 2 tiers, right? Group of 4-3 ends, and I say that Perkins could be a 3-4 DN, and same could be said about Turner. I just like these 3 guys all in a 4-3, and I like them in this order. Oklahoma just, unfortunately, and we're going to kind of talk about another program that did that with a lot of players later on in this video, but Ronnie Perkins just was not used to his fullest potential at Oklahoma, but, it's Big 12 defense. That's kind of their brand, right? They're all about offense, and unfortunately so, somebody couldn't get the most out of Perkins. I think at an NFL level, they'll be able to get that next step. The stats are not sexy, right? Like, he does not have something that you look at the box sheet and you're like, yep, that's a first-round guy. But the more you watch him and you see how he wins, and given a good size and a good frame, I think there's upside. Again, it comes down to being coached and used in the right way, and I think him at Oklahoma kind of just showcases how big scheme and fit plays into this, but I do like Perkins a lot. I'm also a big fan of Boogie Basham. Big frame, and I have him mocked to the Cowboys in the 2nd round, and I'd love to see him opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence. I think Basham, more than the other 2, pretty much has to be in a 4-3. I would not like to see him in a 3-4 role. I don't know if he's athletic enough, big or quick enough, really has enough experience playing in open space to be an outside linebacker where he'll occasionally drop back into coverage, but I like Basham a lot, and he another one of those players just starting to grow on me. And then Peyton Turner overall is just growing on people. Like, he's just climbing up boards. His name is getting hot at the right time. Good burst, wins quickly off the line of scrimmage, and again, I'd like him in a 4-3, a team like the Vikings maybe in round 2 or something like that. Maybe even the Jets at the top of round 2 to go back to New York. But I think Turner could still work in a 3-4, and that's kind of why I put them in this order. Again, I think I could see an argument for me moving Turner up to 7, Perkins down to 8, Basham to 9. I think these 3 can be interchangeable. In a lot of ways, they have very similar skill sets, and again, I think their best fit is in a 4-3. Maybe you knock Basham down just because he's almost exclusively a 4-3 end. But give me your thoughts on this middle of the pack. These are all quality picks in round 2. Like, if a team takes Perkins, Basham, Turner, I'm all about it in round 2, and that's also part of why they're grouped where they are. And then we get to Ossai and Roche. Ossai is, like, I had these 3 because they're all kind of similar, and that's just how I have them ranked anyways. Ossai and Roche are not. He is a 3-4 outside linebacker. That's his experience. Not necessarily super explosive. And I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Like, Jalen Phillips was working a lot against right tackles, while Roche was working against left. And I almost wonder, it's not the end-all, be-all in, every team you play, but I almost wonder if the roles were reversed, if Roche's numbers look even closer to Phillips, and then I wonder if Phillips' numbers kind of come closer to what Roche produced at Miami. But I still like Roche. He's more of a 3rd-round guy. I could still see Ossai going in the 2nd round. I had him mocked to the Chargers. The thing with Ossai is, up until last year, he'd been playing at an inside linebacker position, so you feel confident about him playing in open space, so he fits a 3-4 in that outside linebacker position. So a team like the Giants or the Chargers could certainly take him in round 2, or maybe even the Ravens if they go wide receiver or tackle. Now, I'm recording this on the day of the Orlando Brown trade. Got a couple of picks, so maybe you're going O-line and wide receiver. Osai could be somebody you target on day 2. They no longer have that second round pick, but he picked up a third and a fourth. Maybe Osai falls to the third. Feels like a bit of a stretch, but he is a good athlete and he is very explosive. And the pass rushing moves aren't necessarily bad. They need to be polished. Just like any of these guys, they need to be coached up. And it's more so when to use moves and winning after your first one doesn't convert, right? Like if you don't beat the guy lined up against you right away, that's something a lot of these guys need to learn to get better at. And that's a big skill set to gain, right? Like that's what makes JJ Watt, right? Like you hear high motor, but high motor never giving up on a play. And then there's also, in my eyes, like high motor in the sense that you're going to go and go and go until you win. So Osai needs to learn how to eventually get to that point and refine his pass rushing skills in that area. But I like the upside. And at the minimum, maybe he's not an edge by this classification, but I think you kick him inside and he's a good inside linebacker. Can play in space, good athleticism, and I like the versatility. He's probably more of a 3-4 exclusive guy because of that. I mean, maybe you could use him as a 4-3 will. And just try to blitz him a lot for a team that runs a 4-3 and blitzes those outside linebackers heavily. That could be a scheme fit for Osai, but I like him more in a 3-4. Man, this next group, two day 2 to maybe top of day 3 guys that I really enjoy watching. Two really explosive guys. Smith has got all the power in the world, man. He's got a great athletic ability. He's a lot of what we kind of describe Gregory Rousseau as. And, man, I really love the tape for Jordan Smith. The knock is, he dominates and he has the production at UAB, right? And a lot of the same can be said about Cameron Sample at Tulane. But Sample, though, fantastic Senior Bowl. So that definitely moved him up a lot of people's boards. He was terrific that Senior Bowl week, and maybe that should warrant him being ahead of Smith. But nonetheless, I think these are two players that maybe not immediate impacts day 1, but again, with solid coaching, they have the traits, they check the boxes, and they could be impact players once they're used to and acclimated with the speed of the NFL level. And then we get down to 14 and 15, and a tier of their own. Janarius Robinson from Florida State. And Florida State's just a program that I think really dropped the ball on a lot of these guys. And we're going to talk about them a little bit later, actually, with this next grouping in IDL. It just feels like and it sucks. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I mean, forget about it. I love seeing Florida State not be good, but it's disappointing from a player's perspective and as a football fan, because I'd love to see guys like Robinson or Nasir Adderley, who we'll talk about later, get better and improve. But that program just doesn't have that factor to it right now. Like it used to be just a powerhouse. Guys would just be, churned out to the NFL. And it feels like Florida State's lost that. And Robinson feels like a product of that. Like, never saw him really make that big leap that you would hope. And because of that, he's not in that first, second round consideration. Probably more of a round 3, maybe even 4 guy. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that at an NFL level, if he can get some better coaching and better development, he could then become the guy that I see when you look at who he could be given his size and, again, athleticism. But it's just not there right now. And then Rashad Weaver, he's a pretty good run-stopping end or edge from Pittsburgh. Again, needs to be coached up. Not necessarily the best pass rusher right now, but a solid run defender, and that merits something here. When we're talking about the 15th edge guy, we're talking about somebody in the 4th round where you're trying to find a niche, and I think Weaver could, if somebody's looking for a run-stopping edge or someone to help out stopping the run from that edge spot, I think Weaver fits the bill. Then we get to IDL, and I'll go ahead and show you. Here's the 3 tiers I have, the top 8. Christian Barmore in a league of his own. I mean, he's just unbelievable. When he wants to, and that's kind of the one knock on him, is like it took so long for him to really dominate last year. You go back to 2019, small sample size, but especially looking at pass rush grades, PFF numbers, and whatnot, he was great. Just small sample size. And then, going into the 2020 season, it was like, all right, all eyes on Christian Barmore. He produced really well when he got the chance in 2019, and it kind of took a while. But, dude, in the college football playoff, Christian Barmore was dare I say it, one of the 5 best players on the field at any given time. I mean, he was awesome. Just tore up. I mean, and he was beating up guys like Aaron Banks, who's going to be a day 2 pick going into the NFL. Beating up on guys like Trey Smith, who, I had my concerns at the center spot, but going to be an NFL, a player gets drafted in the NFL this year. So Barmore, fantastic. Inconsistent against the run, but he still has moments where he plays it well. But given his pass rush ability and especially the lack of other elite D tackle prospects in this class, that boosts Barmore's values even more, right? Like, it's supply and demand. Barmore in a league of his own. So leaps and bounds over really everybody. Alim McNeill, though, at number 2 is somebody I like. He's just complete opposite. Where Barmore is just a fantastic pass rusher, Alim McNeill, an elite run stopper. And again, I know it's a passing league, and teams are running the ball less and less generally. I still think Alim McNeill has a lot of upside and a big role potentially at the NFL level. Like, in that mock, I had him going to the Cardinals, and I'd love to see him go there. But wherever he ends up going, I think there's automatically a more favorable spot because NC State in that 3-3-5 defense, there's not always, but you're going to see 3 guys rushing the passer. So Alim McNeill's going to get double teamed a lot. The NFL level, you're going to typically see, whether it's a 4-3-3-4 minimum or so, not always, but you're going to have 4 guys rushing the passer. So Alim McNeill then is been given opportunities to go from being double teamed to one-on-ones. It's a lot easier to win one-on-ones than being double-teamed. So I think that automatically boosts the potential for a pass rush for Alim McNeill. Additionally, if he goes to a team like the Cardinals where he can learn from J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, or another team that has a veteran pass rusher who's top-notch in the game, then all right, there's someone for him to learn and have as a mentor and improve as a pass rusher. And he's such a good run defender. If he just becomes a league-average pass rusher, he's one of the best D tackles in the NFL in my eyes. If he becomes a plus pass rusher with his run-stopping ability, we're talking about one of the best at that position. I think very highly of Alim McNeill. Also, he's coming from a program that's not known for, churning out IDL NFL prospects, right? So, again, needs some coaching. I'd love to see him improve to a moderately okay pass rusher at the minimum, but given his run-stopping ability, he has a high floor. Moving on to Levi Onwuzurike, very quick off the line, great burst, and another interior disruptor. Could definitely see him as a solid day 2 pick, especially in the second round to a team like, I'm not really crazy about the Cowboys taking him because Neville Gallimore is who they took last year in the 3rd round. But a team like, if he's on the board, Tampa, the very end of round 2, I like that fit. And just a team that needs an interior disruptor. I think Levi Onwuzurike can fill that void. And a lot of the same about these next 2 guys. And that's kind of why I have them all grouped together. Maybe Alim McNeill should be in a tier of his own just because he's a run stopper. Onwuzurike, Nixon, Williams, these are all interior disruptors and more pass-first guys. Nixon's knock, he didn't have great games against great competition. I get that. He still piled on the stats. And when you watch him and when he is dominating, it's kind of ugly to watch because he just bullies people. It's like not fair. So I like Davion Nixon. When this process all began, I really liked the idea of him going to the Raiders at 17 overall. Obviously, over time, over months, that has changed. I see him more as a late day or round 2 to round 3 kind of guy, give or take, depending on where people have him on their board. But I think there's upside. And again, there's not a whole lot of great pass rushing D tackles, and Nixon has the potential to get there one day. Barmore's already steps onto the roster, or becomes part of the roster, and he's already a very good pass rusher. Nixon, I think, could be solid off the bat, but has the potential to be great as a IDL D tackle pass rusher. And Milton Williams, an absolute athletic monster, great frame. I think he's better suited as a D tackle, maybe 3-4 D end. So he has a little bit of versatility there, but the knock again, Louisiana Tech. The best team he played was BYU, and he didn't really do much in that game. So production against quote-unquote better opponents is kind of a concern, but he's one of those guys who, again, checks boxes, and coaches are going to want to work with him because given his size and athletic ability, if he learns how to play the position properly, he's going to be a stud. So all these guys need work in one way or another. But again, all quality day 2 selections in my eyes. Then to round out the rest of the IDL, Marvin Wilson. Again, Florida State just dropped the ball. But also, like, Marvin Wilson was fantastic a couple years ago. Like, looked like a shoo-in to be a top 15 pick. As a D-tackle, he looked like, in my eyes, or at least top 16, we'll say top half the first round, he looked like a shoo-in for that. And then just, progressively did not fulfill on that potential and that promise. And again, I some of it's on Wilson, but some of it has to go to Florida State. And I'd love to see an NFL team be able to coach him up properly, because the ability, and we've even seen the production, hasn't been there consistently, and it was only there for that 1 year, and that was a long time ago. But it's almost like if you saw Wilson and it flipped the other way, right, where he was kind of disappointing for a couple of years and then poured it on, had a fantastic 2020, he'd probably be up there with Barmore in a lot of people's eyes. But because it was the other way around, where he went great, kind of like Rondale Moore, great early on in his college career, and then didn't take that next step forward, or didn't keep that consistently great play. He falls down boards and moves himself out of round 1 consideration. I think Wilson's probably late 3rd, earliest. But man, if like the Saints took him at 105, last pick in the 3rd round, I'd love to see what the Saints defense could do with him. And they could use an interior disruptor. And another interior disruptor, Osa Odigizua, another player I really like. And actually, there's a lot of these California guys coming up. But Osa Odigizua, another one of those pass rushing D tackles. I feel like he'd be a good fit with the Rams, potential Michael Brockers replacement. And then for these last 3 names, kind of more nose tackles. Maybe Jay Tufele is kind of just a D tackle instead of a nose tackle. But Marlon Tuipulotu, run-stopping specialist. Tyler Shelvin, big part of LSU's defense. But Shelvin definitely probably just a first 2 downs kind of guy. I think there's some pass rush upside here with Marlon. I'm not going to keep trying to say his last name. Apologies, but I think there is some athletic upside or pass rush upside there, so that's why I gave him the knock up and over Shelvin. And then Jay Tufele, I could easily put over Shelvin, just given he also has that pass rush potential, but opted out of 2020. Good 2018 season. Didn't get better in 2019, just statistically speaking, and there wasn't anything that wowed you in that next season. And then obviously opted out of 2020. But, because he opted out, you feel like there's still some upside. So round 3 to 4, this guy fills a role. Google Docs. This guy fills a role. And then with Marlon and Jay Tufele, you feel like there's some good upside, but also a decently high floor with both of them. On to linebackers. And I made this list prior to Collins putting on weight, but we'll talk about that in a second. Also forgot the S here in Parsons. I'm a bum. Micah Parsons, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I won't drone on. This is the 1-2 on almost everybody's board, right? Like Parsons, super versatile, great athlete, good in coverage, could get better, great at shooting gaps, could be a really good run-stopping linebacker. Love enough 3-4 where you can move him around. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, safety-like linebacker, kind of a Derwin James breed, Jeremy Chin-like, and a great overhang defender, can defend slot wide receivers, and he did so at an elite level nationwide. And he's not afraid to go make a play at the line of scrimmage. He wants to be a hard hitter. He wants to be a guy who takes on blocks. He wants to be active in the run game. So Parsons, joke, first round kind of guys. And Collins is a first round guy too, maybe the very latest, late round 2, but his name kind of has resurfaced. He started the process hot, cooled off a little bit, kind of was late first to early 2, and now he's cemented himself in the mid to late first. But he's put on that weight, about 10 pounds or so. When you go from 260 to 270, I don't know if it's necessarily that huge of a deal, right? Just percentage of body weight. And I don't think it's like Collins got lazy and he just got fat or anything like that. I do buy into the idea that a team is maybe telling him to bulk up because they want to play outside linebacker, maybe like the Dolphins at 18. I could see them just strictly playing him at 3-4 outside linebacker. You can use his playmaking ability and his experience as an inside linebacker as a trait and a positive when he plays in space, and then just turn him into a mostly full-time pass rusher. And I see some upside there. And Collins, the knock I've heard on him is he can get juked out of his socks, which is a concern. And I'm kind of just talking off the top of my head, so if this sounds ignorant, let me know. But moving him to an edge, you kind of negate that a little bit, right? Inside linebacker, you want him to play sideline to sideline. You want him to be a part of the run defense game, right? Like you want him to go head on and find the ball carrier wherever they're at. Outside linebacker, you're cutting that field in half, and if he's going to get juked out of his shoes, at least he's doing that as a guy who's setting the edge, as opposed to the guy who's head hunting and trying to find the running back from the middle linebacker spot. Also, I think Collins is a good fit for Miami because Benardrick McKinney is on a one-year deal, so Collins could start out as an edge rusher, move to the inside if it doesn't work out full-time. But, yeah, let me know what you think about that, the run-stopping theory I have there on Collins. Maybe that's part of why a team might want to move him to outside linebacker to mitigate what's been seen as a weakness in his game. Jamin Davis, honestly, in a lot of ways, you could put him in a tier right here. He feels like a first-round talent, and especially if you consider Collins an outside linebacker, he is the number 3 inside linebacker. Super athletic. I mean, just another one of these guys where it's just like, how are you made the way you are? It just doesn't make sense. Didn't start till this past year at Kentucky, and that could be a red flag. I just throw it out the window, and you look at the progression he made from the beginning of the year to the end. Week by week, he got better and better, and I think there's a good learning curve, and again, with proper coaching, given his athletic measurables and the progression curve where it's heading, Jamin Davis could be a 3-down linebacker at the NFL level, and if a team gets him late first, top of round 2, maybe I don't know if I see him falling past the Lions at 41. That might be like the latest I see him go. Actually, you know what, the absolute latest, the Patriots in the second round, I think that's 45 at the top of my head. That's the absolute latest, but you know, as early as the 20s in the first round on to about 45. I mean, a team's getting really solid and more than likely 3-down starter for your defense. Next couple of guys, these are the round 2 guys. Bolton at a time was a late first round consideration, but teams seem like they've gotten a little cold. It feels like everybody kind of has gotten a little cold on Bolton, but I still like him. He has the speed to go sideline to sideline. He has good enough arm length, so you don't worry about his 5'11 height as much, and he's a thumper. Might not be great in coverage, but dude just wants to make a play at the line of scrimmage. He wants to take on blocks, and he wants to hit somebody. So I still like Bolton. And then Jabril Cox. Again, let me know what you think about this. I haven't gotten any comments about it in my mock video, but Jabril Cox feels like what I would want in a linebacker late round 2 to round 3. Just given the way the NFL is moving, linebackers are kind of screwed, right? Like, everything that happens, it's just at the despite of linebackers, right? Like, you can't touch QBs after a certain point. You can't hit them below a certain point. That's going to hurt typically pass rushers. Could be DNs, could be outside linebackers. And then the progression of offensive systems, zone running, making linebackers have to play sideline to sideline as opposed to just in between the tackles, like 20 years ago or so. And then RPOs and athletic QBs forcing linebackers to try to keep up with the likes of Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson even, but specifically RPOs, right? Like, okay, they're going to hand it off. Nope, they're going to throw a slant right behind my back. And Jabril Cox just has that makeup speed. Like, he might not read a play perfectly correct, but dude, if he's wrong, he's gonna be the first one to try to minimize that mistake by getting to whoever the ball carrier is. So, in a lot of ways, if you're not getting a Parsons or a Joke or maybe even a Jamin Davis, go get a guy with makeup speed who's just going to be like, oh, they threw an RPO behind my back, let's keep it at 12 yards, as opposed to this gets out of hand, this goes to the house, or this becomes a 20, 30-yard gain or whatever. So let me know what you think of that take in the comment section. Might be a dumb one, but I kind of see that being what you should draft in a linebacker. Obviously, like, make sure he's an adequate size. Is he a good athlete? All these kind of things. But Jabril Cox has that just makeup speed. He can fly around the field. Obviously, he feels like, and this is like an LSU to LSU comp, but he feels kind of like a poor man's Patrick Queen in a lot of ways. So, and a lot of the same could be said about Patrick Queen, but he was a first-round guy, and I have higher expectations than what I would expect a team to have if they took Cox in, say, top of round 3, like a Philadelphia at 70. Like, that's a good fit for him, and I think it helps serve a position of need for them. On to our final group of linebackers, Baron Browning. Yeah, man, I don't know. This is tough. I'm all for, if you're a fan of PFF, Mike Renner's take of like just playing him at 3-4 outside linebacker. Therefore, he'd go into the edge category just because he has experience playing in space and he is a great athlete. So he would when you drop him back into coverage, he'd be great in that role. And his best reps do come rushing pass rushers, even against tackles. Like, he has some great tape and some great reps rushing the passer. But likewise, I don't hate the idea of him as like a 3-4 outside linebacker, like the Browns say, or the Bengals round 2, round 3. Those 3-4 teams, or excuse me, 4-3 teams looking for an outside linebacker who, especially with Browning, if he goes to a team that wants to blitz linebackers and they run a 4-3, I'm totally okay with this, because then you're using that skill set he has. He could certainly get more consistent in the run game and maybe a little bit better in coverage. But the stakes for him as a coverage defender versus someone like Parsons you're going to take in the first round is different in my eyes. Obviously, these guys need to be coached up more. That's just your expectations, mid-round guys versus round 1. But I do like the upside. And Browning's, his name's getting hot at the right time. And that almost made me want to knock him down, but then he's 100% better than these guys as of right now. But I really love Baron Browning as like a third-round guy. But now it feels like he's getting enough momentum to sneak in round 2. So still good value, though. Still think there's a lot of upside for Baron Browning. Then you get to Chaz Surratt, a quarterback turned linebacker. You've heard it 1,000 times, I'm sure. Guy who's still learning how to play linebacker. And him, like Jabril Cox, great athlete, and he knows how to has that makeup speed. If he gets beat, he's going to be the first one to try to get to the ball carrier and make up for it. Also, given his time as a QB, you feel like he understands offenses really well. And it feels like, you talk about a linebacker, you want him to be the QB of the defense. Surratt can bring that to the table. Definitely a third-round guy. And maybe Browning should be bumped up into this tier. These feel like round 2. Cox I had in the third round of my mock. But let's say second round to early third. These guys are the mid to late third. Also, Derek Barnes is getting a lot of buzz right now, and revisiting his tape. Actually, really like it. It's kind of tough to watch linebackers on tape just because everything's going on, and again, college football, the NFL, they're all. It feels like the rules and the changing of their systems on the offensive end, it's just out to screw linebackers. So it's tough what you value in those positions. But I do like Barnes, and I think he could be a third-round guy. But I like Surratt a lot. Good athlete. Feels like he reads offenses really well. Pete Werner, another really good athlete. Got hot after a really good pro day. And also Ohio State, just a really good program that produces solid linebackers. So, and then Cameron McGrone. Again, great pro day. And if you're looking for an athlete with makeup ability, it's Cameron McGrone. So, take your pick with these three. Whatever order you have them in, I can see it. I can buy into it. These three, in a lot of ways, feel very similar. And they're all projects, and they're all mid to late third round guys in my eyes, as well as Derek Barnes. On to the cornerback group, and this is a really good CB class. Honestly, this is a good class just in general. I feel like every position I'm talking about is like, oh, this is good. Outside of D-tackle, right? Like, I feel like after these guys, you kind of lose the upside. I also like Oso Odighizuwa, so I don't know. But maybe outside of IDO, that's kind of where you have the drop-off, and it's like, okay, that's not a deep position in this class. But I think everywhere else is pretty darn good. On to cornerback, nonetheless. Patrick Surtain is actually, you know what? Let me be formal here. Patrick Surtain II is my cornerback 1. I just like his ability to play man and zone. If we're talking strictly man, Horn would get the nod. But I think they're both good athletes. Horn has the edge there, but Surtain is no slouch. I think he ran a 4.4 at his pro day. Could be wrong on that, but so technically sound. The only thing that you might beat him on is like an inside slant, and it's like, okay. If he has to, he'll play inside leverage. If he can't get better at it, he'll play inside leverage. But I feel like that's a mistake with a good DB's coach that can be taken away very quickly. So I like Patrick Surtain. He's just one of those guys who maybe isn't like an A-tier player at any one thing, but just B pluses in so many different areas. He's pretty good against the run, really solid in man, has experience playing zone, a lot of different zones, and I think he fits a lot of different defenses. So I got him at CB1. I think he'll make a team very happy at the top of round 1. And JC Horn, man, if you're gonna run man press, this is your guy. If he gets his hands on you, you might as well just take the play off in a lot of ways. Like, that's obviously a hyperbole, but I really like what I see from Horn. I just worry about him playing in zone. He is a little handsy, and typically that comes in zone coverage. So at the NFL level, he's going to be forced to play more zone coverage. So is there causation or correlation there? Does he struggle in zone coverage so he gets handsy? Therefore, he's going to get flagged more. And if he plays more zone, is he going to get called for more flags at the NFL level? That's a bit of a concern. But again, just like Surtain being beat by slant and pretty much slant alone, it feels like Horn can work on his hands and his technique in zone coverage. But both guys who are CB1 potential in my eye. And honestly, if this guy didn't have any injury concerns, he'd be my cornerback one. I love Caleb Farley, man. Like, quarterback turned wide receiver, finally plays corner. First game playing cornerback, he gets a couple of picks. I'm sure you've heard thousands of people say the exact same thing. And it's just like when you watch this guy's a football player. Doesn't matter where you put him. It feels like he's just going to produce. And obviously Virginia Tech likes him at corner, and obviously a lot of NFL teams do too. Size, athletic ability, check. Ability to play man, he's great in zone. Really the only question mark is he going to stay healthy? And where I could see Surtain having like a really good 12-year career, a guy who's just like, a B-plus corner for 12 years. And I could see Horn being a really solid NFL pro, maybe a couple years where he's great. And he has a 10-year career when he hangs it up. Farley, it feels like, given his injuries, could be a guy where it's like, man, when he was on the field, he was obviously great. But it's over maybe just his rookie contract, and you throw in the fifth-year option on the end, so just like 5 years, maybe up to 8. But obviously the talent's there with Farley. It's just, what are you getting into with the back injuries? And he's also torn an ACL. Those can be concerns, and they should be concerns. Another guy who's gotten some injury concerns is Greg Newsome. I like Newsome, though. Another guy with good size, good enough speed. Not necessarily top tier like Horn or Farley maybe, but he's got plenty of it. He's faster than Asante Samuel Jr. And Greg Newsome really turned it on this last year at Northwestern. That's kind of the knock, is it's just the one good year. But again, it kind of goes to that Marvin Wilson talk, right? Like, when was the good year? Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Because then, but if it was last year, all right, yeah, cool, good. You made improvement. You got better. But I mean, that makes sense, right? We want guys on the upswing, not on the downward spiral. So Newsome is on that upswing and played fantastic in Northwestern, and he was great at big games, right? Like, was really solid against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. So the ability to play in big games, feels like he can play in a lot of different defenses. Good size, good athlete. Obviously, a first-round caliber corner. Then Asante Samuel Jr. And it sucks because like his comp in a lot of ways is his dad. And again, I'm not making this out like I'm the first person to say that, but doesn't have great size, like low 4.4 speed. Like, he's good enough of an athlete, but he's not going to wow you like Farley or Horn. But man, his ability to read a play, it's insane. It must be his film room. Like, his film study just must be next level. And just his memorization and ability to read a QB's eyes and understand a play, diagnose what's going on in front of him. He's one of those guys where it looks like he's running the route for an offense, but instead he's, obviously coming away with a pass deflection or a pick. So in a lot of ways, he makes me think of his dad. When I think of his dad, I think of, wide receiver tried to run a curl route, and Asante Samuel's taking it back to the house for 6. And that's kind of the vibe I get when I watch Asante Samuel Jr. Late first round. Really, I don't know if he gets past, at the absolute latest, the Titans' second-round pick. But maybe the Niners in the second round is truly the latest that he actually ends up going. On to Aaron Robinson, Elijah Molden, couple of nickel corners here. I think Molden has safety versatility, and that kind of made me want to move up over Aaron Robinson, though. I think Robinson maybe could play on the outside. You kind of worry about his feet and his hips. Is he fast enough to do it? But when it comes to man press, he's got it. He's got the skill set, and he is a little short, right? Like, he's he's listed on UCF's roster, I think, before the year, like 6'1". He's really like 5'10 and a half. So that might knock away the idea of him playing on the outside, though. I don't know, 5'10". If you're good, you'll make it work. Just like Asante Samuel. If you're 5'10 and good, I don't care. If you're 5'8, then that's a different story in my eyes. But at the minimum, I value Aaron Robinson as I think a future great nickel corner. And there's a couple people that when you look at slot-only wide receivers or slot-only corners, people can see that as a negative, but I see an NFL that's more and more common to have 3 wide receivers, 3 cornerbacks on the field a majority of the time, right? So I think having Aaron Robinson, so you might not have him in your base defense when there's only 2 CBs out there, I think when you go three wide, he provides a lot of value. And especially with teams moving their best wide receiver to the slot more and more frequently, there's a ton of value to be had there. And obviously, I think Aaron Robinson fills that void. I think he can take away a team slot wide receiver on his own. Realizing I'm at like 47 minutes recording, so I'm going to start picking this up. Elijah Molden, a lot of the same could be said. He's also great against the run, and I think he's got great safety versatility. So even when you go to a base, I think he could become your free safety or strong safety and keep him around the line of scrimmage. So I obviously really like Molden. I think whoever gets him in the second round is getting one heck of a football player. Kelvin Joseph, take away the off-field concerns. He's probably up above Asante Samuel, maybe even Greg Newsome. Size, speed, and good tape. He is pretty technically sound, but we don't even know really why he had to leave LSU, which is obviously a concern. But regardless of that, when you look at what he can do as a cornerback, he has CB1 shutdown potential. So obviously a lot to like there. Next up, Tay Gowan spent a couple years at community college, only the 1 year as a D1 football player in 2019 at UCF. But that 1 year we got was great. And the reason he had to not opt out of 2020 was because he got COVID. He has a child who also got COVID. So there are things bigger than football. And in a lot of ways, maybe this is me not separating personal from football, but a guy who has a kid and felt like he needed to do the responsible thing, that to me stands out. So I like Tay Gowan, and that's probably just personal bias more than anything. But go back to 2019, he was fantastic. Great size, fast enough, probably around 4.5, 40 if memory serves. But I think late 2 to 3rd round, he's a potential starting corner, maybe as early as day 1 for an NFL team. Then we get to our Georgia corners, Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes. I'd love to have them higher because they both have good size, good frame, and I like Campbell just a hair more. I go back and forth, though. It feels like every week I change my mind. But I think these guys are not benefited from the likes of DeAndre Baker, like struggling. Like it feels like the Georgia way of playing corner hasn't translated well to the NFL. So it comes down to being coached up at the NFL level. So a DB coach will look at these guys and be like, dude, great athletes with great size. Give them to me. And then if they can learn how to properly fit within the defense and learn their role and execute, yeah, we're looking at really good corner prospects, potential CB1 guys or high-end CB2s. Ambry Thomas, a guy that isn't talked about a whole lot, and had he gotten more tape, not been injured, I think he probably moves up the board. But again, once you get to this range, there's question marks, right? Like it's the system here at Georgia. It's injuries with Ambry Thomas. Efetu Melifonwu, superb athlete, needs to get better as a corner. Like it's the technical stuff that he needs to get better. And overall, that just feels like the vibe of Syracuse. They just got to get more technically sound. But they have a bunch of athletes and a bunch of guys with fantastic names as well. Paulson Adebo, just a great playmaker, man. He knows how to break on football. A lot like Asante Samuel, but Asante Samuel's more sound in coverage. Paulson Adebo has some work to do there. Before the year began, he felt like a front runner for a top-end corner. It felt like it was going to be, Surtain and Sean Wade. We're going to talk about here soon enough. Remember those days? Surtain and Sean Wade were the guys talked about as 1-2 in the cornerback class, and then Adebo was right behind him. Obviously, things have changed, but I still like Paulson Adebo, especially for like a cover 3 defense. Like if he ended up in Seattle in round 2, I think that'd be a match made in heaven. And then we got Robert Rochelle. This is a guy who I think would probably not be a starter for 2 years, but then in year 3, if he was again coached up the right way, then this guy could be a freak. He is already a superb athlete. Like this is already a great CB class of athletes, but like Rochelle might be better than Farley, or if not, he's on Farley's level. He's just he's coming from a small school, didn't play great competition, and wide receiver turned DB, so needs to learn more about the position. But because of that, he also has some instincts and knows what wide receivers are trying to do against him. So there's a super high ceiling there with Rochelle. And given his athletic ability, at the minimum, you feel like he could be a good special teams guy, which, you're taking Rochelle in round 3 to 4, not because you want him to be a special teams guy, but at the minimum, he does provide something for you with his ability to cover field, given how fast and how good of an athlete he is. But again, you have him learn the position for 2 years. If he goes to a right defense, like if New England got their hands on him in maybe the third to the fourth, I'd really like that fit and an opportunity for him in a couple of years to really shine. And then also HM is honorable mention to Benjamin St. Juste. Great man press corner, fantastic size. Just I don't know if I could fit him in. It was a tough argument in my head between him and Rochelle, but gave the nod to the athlete in Rochelle. I'm someone who used to play sports but doesn't anymore and does not have good athletic ability, so I am a little biased to guys who are just athletically gifted. On to the safety class, then we'll bring a close to this video. Trevon Moehrig, I don't need to say this, right? Best free, best strong safety. He also has some reps at nickel corner. You go back to his 2019 grades in coverage, especially at free safety. That's why I would play him at free safety. But he does have some ability to play nickel. Actually played more nickel than free last year, and that's probably why his coverage grade and PFF rating kind of came down a little bit in 2020. But I still like Moehrig, man. This guy wants to hit you, wants to make a play, wants to tackle a ball carrier, but he's also tremendous in coverage, covers a ton of ground, and he, as an athlete, feels like he's just above everybody else in this safety class. And there's some good athletes, but Moehrig just can do so much. I'm a huge Jevon Holland fan. Almost put him in a tier of his own. You know what? Actually, on the fly, let's go for it. Whoops. You're seeing me mess up here live. But, all right, whatever. I feel like Holland could be in a league of his own, just because his ability to drive on the football. I'd love to see him at safety at the next level, but he also has plenty of reps at nickel corner. And I know there's teams that see him as a free safety, see him as a nickel only. I think best suited, just like Elijah Molden, you're using him in a lot of different ways. Just like we talk about with offenses, right? You want to use a running back in different ways. You want to use a wide receiver like Rondale Moore in different roles. Use Holland, use Molden in those different roles as well, just on the defensive side of the football. But I love Holland. He's also, I think, a really good tackler and a hard hitter. So a lot of what I like about Moehrig, I see in Holland. And I would be someone who'd make the push for Holland, having an argument making the first round. Like if Moehrig was off the board by the Raiders at 17 and a safety needy team, like the Jags maybe, or someone along those, or a team traded back up in the first round like Atlanta, I would be all for them taking Jevon Holland. Richie Grant, not necessarily super fast, like measurably wise, but when you watch him on tape and you go look at the highlights, literally just go on Twitter, type in Richie Grant Senior Bowl, and you'll see a bunch of clips. He was just fantastic that week. He was the talk of the Senior Bowl week, excuse me. Senior week, that's different. But Richie Grant, and also he wants to be an enforcer near the line of scrimmage. Hard hitter, can play in the box, but he also is very instinctual, takes good angles against not only ball carriers, but also against passes, so he can cover a ton of ground. He does it very efficiently. So because of that, I think he could be a deep safety, so he could be a strong or free safety at the next level. Jamar Johnson, big weakness is he's not a very good tackle, not very refined in that area, but man, when it comes to just being a ball hawk, he's as good as he gets. Him and Andre Cisco, who I'm maybe a little lower on than most, but I don't know. Cisco's just got too much boomer bust. I think Johnson's floor is a little higher than Cisco, and also Johnson comes with a few less boneheaded plays, knows how to make angles a little bit better, more so in the passing game. Needs to improve as a tackler. Looks like he's just trying to force a fumble. He's going for the ball more than the ball carrier, but maybe that's something that gets coached, or maybe he's just a guy you throw back 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage, let him be a ball hawk, and you let your strong safety do that work and be the cleanup guy, be the sweeper of sorts. Number 5, our Darius Washington. He's the other split safety with Trevon Moehrig from TCU. A little bit small for the position, but also just like his coverage ability. And I see the potential future of him as a free safety. Again, outside of Moehrig, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of gifted athletes, not like 4-3, 4-4 guys out there, but Washington, again, playing that far away from the line of scrimmage, I think there's a lot to work with there, and I feel like he'd be worth the day or round 3 pick. On the number 6, Hamsah Nasir-Deline. Apologies, that name always gives me a hard time. A lot of syllables. Another player from Florida State, felt like couldn't hit his full potential. And again, maybe I'm a Notre Dame fan and I'm just like ragging on the Seminoles, but love to see him as an in-box safety. And I'm actually pretty sure Divine Diablo, and really these guys should probably be in a tier of their own. I got a little lazy, I guess, here at the end. These two feel like in a league of their own, tier of their own, excuse me. guys who really, I think, fit well with where the NFL is heading, safety turned linebacker. I'm pretty sure Diablo's been told their teams want him to play linebacker, and I can see both these guys being used as kind of what Keanu Neal is going to be used as for the Cowboys, an off-ball linebacker who has plenty of coverage experience, and both these guys are going to make you feel it when they hit you. Have good size. Pretty sure they're both 6'3". I think Diablo is a little heavier, but like by a handful of pounds. But those two guys are very similar, so take your pick on which one you like more. On to Andre Cisco, dude, man. When you watch his highlights, he's one of those guys that like just has the highlight plays, and you're like, dude, take this guy top 10. Or this guy's ability to make a play, read a QB, it's just absurd. He's also a guy who takes terrible angles to ball carriers, terrible angles to passes as well. Like, when he gets burned, it's ugly. And when he's trying to cut down on a ball carrier and he misses, it's bad. But he'll just make plays that'll make your jaw drop to the floor. But he also makes mistakes that coaches just don't want to put up with, especially at the NFL level. It's like, I don't have time to coach up middle school techniques in a lot of ways. I'm not saying he's middle school or anything like that. Though I have heard the argument in 2019, he only got to play 2 games, but that it was better. But that's a small sample size, and you can have a hot 2-game stretch. So I'm not completely sold. These two guys are more strong safeties. Cisco would be more of a free. So these three feel like a tier of their own. Just they do different positions. These guys, I feel like safeties should turn linebackers. Free safety that needs to kind of learn how to play free safety. But man, Cisco can bring about the big play that just can't be taught. Like, those instincts there's nothing you can do about that. Like, that's just him being a talented football player, but he needs to get coached up. He needs to learn that football IQ. Tyree Gillespie, I'm a tough guy. I don't know if he plays strong or free safety. I don't know. He can be tough to read. He does a little bit of everything pretty well, but nothing stellar. And it feels like I can't put him in a spot. Like, all these guys, I'm like, Mara can do both. Holland at free or nickel. Grant can do both. Jamar Johnson at free. Washington at free. Say strong, free for Cisco. And then it's like Gillespie. It's like, I don't know where I'd put him. And then we get to Shaun Wade, who could be a good nickel corner, but I think he might be better suited as a safety, like a big body safety. Obviously, it was really disappointing this year at Ohio State, covering guys on the outside. He's just not quick enough to do that. But I think he's a pretty good player near the line of scrimmage, and I almost wonder if a move to safety allows him to use that skill set as well as hides his slow feet and puts him in more favorable positions, like maybe defending tight ends more than outside wide receivers or defending the slot wide receiver, depending on who it is. If it's not the team's best wide receiver, like if it's not Keenan Allen for the Chargers, if it's just like the third guy in an offense who's been designated as a slot guy, I could see Wade having success there. So kind of like what we talked about with Holland and Molden, I think best used in a few different ways, but you could also put Sean Davis from Florida here, kind of contemplated that, but for the sake of doing something a little different and projecting Wade as a safety as opposed to a corner, I went with Wade. But those are my defensive position rankings. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? How do you have these players ranked? Give me the full list if you want, or you can go position that you think I was just like completely egregious on, and you could let me know what you think about that. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button. It would mean the world to me. And if you're new to the channel, like football content, sports in general, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Until next time, everybody, my name's Teej. Hope you have a fantastic day, and I am signing off.
I'm part of the last generation that remembers time of God.